Welcome back, dear children. Myself, Sir Sunil, your physics teacher. Good morning to one and all. And how are you all? I hope you all are fine and you are enjoying holidays. Okay, students. And we are discussing our unit 3rd, the chapter name force. Okay. And from this topic, today we are going to start an important portion, that is effects of friction. Okay, students, you are eagerly waiting for this class. Okay, I know very well because you are good children. Now, what to do? Please take out your book and ready to watch the video. Okay, students, here is our topic: effects of friction. Effects of friction. Yesterday we have discussed about the friction, just we have started. And today we are going to discuss what are the effects of friction. And yesterday itself, I told you that friction opposes the motion. We have read about that friction is a force which opposes motion. Friction opposes motion. In daily life, we often have to move bodies from one place to another by pushing or pulling them. In daily life, always we are doing an action, that is, we are moving the objects from one place to another. Suppose we want to push a box. Okay, suppose we want to push a box. Okay, what to do? If we push the box with a little effort, we will find that the box does not move. We want to push a box and we want to move a box from one place to another. And if you are giving the effort a little effort, if you are giving, whether it will move? No, it does not move. The box does not move. This means that there is some opposite force between the box and the ground, which makes the box not to move. The box is not moving means there is some opposing force between the box and the ground. Box is touching the ground, you know. Between the box, the bottom of the box and the ground, some opposing force is there. That makes the box not to move. This opposing force is called the force of friction. This opposing force is called the force of friction. Please underline it. The opposing force which make the box does not move from one place to another, that is called force of friction. Okay, students. Now, if we push the box head, means we apply more effort. We apply more effort to push the box starts moving. The box starts moving. This happens because now the force applied has overcome the force of friction. If you are giving more effort to the box, it starts to move. What is the meaning? We overcome the force of friction. More force of friction, we have applied some force. That's why the body starts to move. If we roll a ball on the ground, it gradually slows down and after traveling a certain distance. If we roll a ball on the ground, suppose we are kicking one ball in the ground, gradually its movement slows down and after traveling a certain distance, what will happen to it? It stops the motion. What is the reason? What is the reason? The reason is that the force of friction between the ball and the ground opposes the motion of the ball and brings it to stop. The reason of the ball to stop, that is force of friction. Okay, students. Similarly, if you stop a pedaling bicycle, one situation, it slows down. First First the cycle will slows down, and after traveling a certain distance, it stops because of the force of friction between the cycle tires and the rod. Because of the force of friction applied between the cycle tire and the ground, the cycle first slows down and finally it stops. To start the bicycle, what we have to do is to start the bicycle, we have to exert a more pressure, exert a force on the pedal greater than the force of friction. To start the bicycle again, we have to give more force than the force of friction, then only it will start to move. So always we can conclude that here is a point, that is friction opposes motion. That is the first effect of friction. Friction opposes motion. Okay students. Now second effect here, that is friction always acts in a direction opposite to the direction of motion. Friction always acts in a direction opposite to the direction of motion. Okay. If we move the box to right, if we move the box to the right, the friction acts towards the left. If he wants to move a box to the right, the friction acts to move just opposite towards the left. And if we move the box left, the friction acts towards the right. Okay, students, here is another diagram, direction of motion towards right. Clear? Then what is the moment? What is the direction of the force of friction here? You see, we are pushing this side and the force of friction acts this side, just opposite. Clear? Here we are pushing this side and force of friction this side. Okay, that's effectively we have discussed now. If we push a body on the left, the force of friction acts just opposite left side. Okay. Now next effect is friction produces heat. Friction produces heat. It is our common experience that if we rub our palms, they become warm. Just you rub the palm. Clear? And after some time, what can you observe? We can feel the warmness. Clear? They become warm. Our hands become warm. Similarly, it is due to friction that the moving parts of the machine get warm. Sometimes maybe you have observed that the rubbing parts, the moving parts of the machine gets warm. But it's the same reason, because of friction. In ancient days, people used to produce fire by which method? By rubbing two stones. In history we are learning. By rubbing two stones against each other, human being invented fire. The burning of a matchstick and rubbing it on a rough surface, it is also due to friction. The burning of a matchstick, we know that, by rubbing it on a rough surface. That is because of a friction only. Thus, we can conclude that this point, next effect, that is, thus friction produces heat. Friction produces heat. Now next point, that is friction causes wear and tear. Friction causes wear and tear. Okay students, we have noticed that in our daily life that the tires of bicycle, rickshaw, car and other vehicles gradually wear out when they are continuously used due to friction between the tire and the ground. The tire is getting over, cycles and rickshaws and car, and we have to change after a long period of run. Clear? It's getting over. Why? Because of the friction between ground and the tire. Friction between ground and the tire. Okay, students. And in machines, the moving parts gradually wear out, and in machines also, we can see that gradually the moving parts wear out when they are continuously used. That is also because of friction. Now, do you know the force of friction arises because of the interlocking of the irregular projections on the two surfaces in contact? Why the force of friction arises? That is because of the interlocking of the irregular projections. Interlocking of the irregular projections on the two surfaces in contact. Okay, students. Now we are going to discuss factors affecting the force of friction. Factors affecting the force of friction. First one, the smoothness of the surface. First factor is the smoothness of the surface. The force of friction is more between rough surfaces. The force of friction that is between rough surfaces, that is more. The force of friction more between rough surfaces and less between smooth surfaces. The force of friction that is between more in rough surfaces, less between smooth surfaces. There will be no friction between two perfectly smooth surfaces. Two perfectly smooth surfaces, there is no friction. The tiles and all, tiles floor, you know, at home, we will slip very fast if there is water because the friction is less there. The tiles are very smooth, you know very well. This is an ideal situation which is not practically possible. Activity 2. Take a ball, clear, take a small ball, roll the ball on a wooden surface. Take a small ball and roll the ball on a wooden surface. Note the distance which the ball covers on wooden surface before it stops. Just note the distance which the ball covers on the wooden surface. Then roll the balls on the glass surface. First roll the ball on wooden surface and measure or observe the distance, how much it is covered. And next, now we are going to roll the ball on the glass surface. Again note the distance which the ball moves on the glass surface before it stops. Just observe the distance. You will notice that the distance moved on the wooden surface is less than the distance moved on the glass surface. That means, what is the reason? In wooden surface, the ball just little distance only covered than the glass surface. Why? The friction on glass surface is less. That is because the friction on the glass surface that is less than that of the wooden surface. It is because the glass surface is smooth. That is because the glass surface is smooth as compared to the wooden surface. So we can conclude that in smooth surface the friction is small. The friction is less. And second point is, second factor affects the friction is the nature of medium in which the body moves. The nature of the medium in which the body moves. Solid, liquid or gas. There are three states, we know that. Okay. A solid, liquid or gas all exert force of friction on a moving body. Solid, liquid or gas, all states of matter exert force of friction on a moving body. The force of friction between a solid and a solid is more. The force of friction between a solid and a solid, that is more. It is less between solid and a liquid and still less between solid and a gas. Okay students, the force of friction, here you have to mark, you please observe this point, the force of friction between solid to solid, that is more and less between a solid to liquid, less between a solid to liquid, and still less between solid and a gas. Now another point is the weight of the moving body on the surface. Another factor affects the force of friction, that is weight of the moving body on the surface. Greater the weight of the moving body on a surface, more is the force of friction. If greater the weight, the force of friction will be more. Clear? More is the force of friction on the body by the surface. The force of friction will be more if the weight is more. Okay students, these are the factors affecting the friction. First one, it is the smoothness of surface. Second one, the nature of medium in which the body moves, and third one, the weight of the moving body on the surface. Okay students, here we can observe the diagram also. See here, less friction, clear, the weight is only W, less friction, but here the second situation, the weight is 2W, then the friction is more. Okay. By this point, today we are going to wind up this class, and tomorrow will come with the topic kinds of motion. Come with the topic kinds of motion. Till then, goodbye and have a nice day.